Hi, Ed. Am I supposed to be here?
Hello. You're in the right place.
Oh, okay, cool.
Excited? I wonder who's going to turn up. I imagine my guess is very few people apart from us and a couple staff members. I think that's going to be my guess. Have you invited anyone? Have you invited anyone, Petra?
I haven't. No.
Anna, did you invite anyone?
I invited one friend. I don't know if she'll actually come, but yeah.
Ventana, did you invite anyone? You're on mute. I think you said no, though.
Yeah, I said no, my mum's busy.
Jamie, did you invite anyone?
I explicitly told them not to come. Because I know my mum, if you think I'm fiery, I'm very light work in comparison to my mum.
Okay.
She'd bring so much smoke that I don't even want it.
I can, if I mute someone, if I'm the host, they stay muted until I unmute them. Josh, did you invite anyone?
Yeah, I don't know who's coming, but I did put the notification on my family WhatsApp. So,
Aidan, what about you?
No.
Paulina?
So what's the question?
How many pieces of fruit did you have today?
How many what?
Pieces of fruit did you have today?
2.
Cool, good job, nice. And the real question was, did you invite anyone to the this session? No. Anthony, did you invite anyone?
I mean, I can invite someone right now.
Just
on the phone asking.
Feel free to, absolutely. That's what this is about. This is about celebrating the work that we've done and providing some closure to the intensive learning experience. And it'll be good to get all the staff members who managed to show up today, seeing all the things you've been doing. But it's mostly for all of you. So this is a time for us to celebrate each other and all the hard work we've done. Marie, do you invite anyone?
I haven't sent the link out yet. Maybe.
You have 9 minutes if you do want to. And again, this is I'm just being my classic jokey self. There's no obligation to. Matt, did you invite anyone?
No, actually, I'm home alone this week, so they're on holiday, so they're probably on
They managed to get away, or is it domestic?
Well, they're on the other side of the country, so I wouldn't say it's not sunny, but it might be okay there. I don't know. Not Spain though.
Safa, what about you?
No, I didn't invite anyone.
Lewis?
I invited my parents, but they're also on holiday.
That's a tough week. It's half-term week, isn't it? So it's
yeah. My mum's a teacher. So.
Yeah, she was like, get away. Absolutely. Any more education stuff? Absolutely not on holiday. Susanna, what about you?
No, I didn't invite anybody either.
So it's looking like we may have 1 or 2 members from the immediate network of the cohort, but it's mostly going to be staff members. That sounds like it's going to be the case, which is a good crowd. No pressure, essentially. So I put all the slides together. It's also recording right now, so this is good stuff to look back on. Part of Canon now for digital teachers. Put the slides all together, so that should be ready for everyone. I checked all the videos. What's a fun game to play for about 5 minutes?
use.
It's difficult doing that remotely, I think. Yeah, yeah. So usually in this time beforehand, I'm trying to compare it to like usually when we're on site together. There'd just be like milling about. There'd be like people talking to random people, and lots of mic checks. Usually there'd be some issue, some technical issue about sort of like the projector, the screens, the audio system, last minute panics, things like that going. There's none of that. So it's quite easy. It's quite casual. The only problem we have is like having to fill time. So that's.
Well, I have a question, if you like.
Yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
we better get changed and look smart, because I see some people in shirts. And like, here I am out here wearing a t-shirt and short.
Well, I can't tell about the shorts. Don't worry. It's entirely up to you. This is. And you still have 5 minutes if you do want to change.
I just wore this, Jamie, because you said you'd give me a compliment if I wore a shirt.
Well, you're looking nice, Josh.
I'll stop it.
Also, do our cameras have to be on?
Ideally, yes. We've got to show. It depends. If there are no staff members, absolutely fine. If there are staff members, cameras on. Deal? Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever turn your camera off, Jamie?
No, I like people to see what I'm doing, so they feel like safe.
Do people not feel safe around you?
I don't really have an answer for that one.
Okay, question. That's an interesting question. I think probably now is the time. Mac versus Windows. Probably this is the right moment.
Neither.
So again, Marie.
Neither.
Neither. Okay, good choice. All right, go ahead then. What's your vote?
They're
Pen and
both the
paper?
same. Yeah, pen and paper. Not even that. What were they using before that? Rocks and traveling with the birds and stuff. I
Yeah.
think that's
Any more opinions on the matter?
Yeah. Linux is obviously god tier, right, for like doing work. But
So
like
you
you can't play Linux is like god tier for like doing work and coding and all that. But obviously you can't play video games, so very disappointment, right? Similar with Mac, right? Way better than Windows, but not as many video games. So similarly, a very even bigger disappointment. If I'm gonna give up video games, I might as well go all the way. So therefore, Windows is the obvious choice out of everything.
I have just posted in the chat the exact thing Jamie's talking about.
Why can you not play video games on some of them?
Because video game developers don't make it for it because, well, Mac has a stupid rule where it has to be their particular language and you can only test it on Macs because of their copyright issues. And Linux is like just designed to be highly customizable. So again, it's like you could have a very different version from what's released.
Also, Macs aren't really made with dedicated GPUs, so you can't really run a lot of shit.
What I'm hearing is Macs are just overpriced.
No comment.
Your only real argument is video games. Not everybody plays video games, so.
Correctly observed, Paulina.
And I'd also go back to the antivirus I previously pointed out to you, Jamie. But I would agree they are slightly overpriced.
I can't custom build a Mac. I can't buy parts for cheap.
Can't upgrade, can't repair.
I don't want to pay 5k for parts that cost about 1k. What is that premium price, that markup?
What was that point about antivirus as well? Just be better at not getting viruses. It's not hard.
Sorry, I'm talking about Microsoft.
It's a good choice to bring up this divisive issue in here right before this cohort presentation.
Why do you use Mac? Is it because your mum got you on it from working at Apple?
Man, you can't
I was
talk about
addressed to
mum like
you,
that.
Ed.
That's a bit rude. That's going far.
What? She worked at
I wouldn't
Apple
take it.
back in the day, is what I remember. Why do you use Apple, Ed? You can keep ducking the question. I'm going to keep asking it.
I've got both. I do most of my work on a Mac Mini and one of the new M1s because I love it.
The M1 chip good?
If you know how, yeah, pretty much. If you know what you're doing. The M2 is coming out, or at least the M1 Pro is coming out soon. Terribly quick, which is a joy to use. None of that waiting around they got to do with Windows.
What waiting around?
Yeah,
A
exactly.
20-minute boot up time.
Get a Ryzen chip. It's so fast.
These things are all becoming much of a non-issue as they all integrate more and more these days. What's this chat link? There's a spot and to send. I run games on these different operating systems. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen and have the holding slide for the presentation. Thanks, all right? And then the moment of truth will come in a minute's time. Yay. We have Sean with us.
Good afternoon, Ed. Good afternoon.
Hi, Sean.
You won. Oh, yeah, we've just finished on the call with Scott. Scott's just about to join us.
Fantastic. How's your Friday been?
Yeah, it's been a really busy week this week. Really busy. And to be fair, I've got a really stacked week next week as well. So yeah, it's, yeah, there's a lot of motion. A lot of motion. And how's your end of the week been?
Oh, it's been really enjoyable seeing the cohort finish, get to where they got to in the project. So lots of fun things.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's looking forward to the weekend though.
Yeah.
It was a short week as well. It didn't feel like it to me.
Yeah. Lots of work done in 4 days compared to.
Yeah, feels like
We've had a number of them. I think we had 3 in this cohort, 3 short weeks, maybe even 4. I can't remember. I think it's been 3. It's definitely felt it. Wow. Hi, Emily. Hi, Scott. Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Steph. Everyone's connecting.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Let's wait another 30 seconds to see who else shows up, and then we're gonna crack on. We've got a lovely set of presentations from pairs and teamwork to get through. Hey, Nat. Just joining. Hopefully this will be a lovely end to everyone's Friday. You don't have to do much. You can just like sit back and watch, and that should be an enjoyable experience.
No pressure then, Ed. No pressure.
I eat pressure. That's a lovely background that someone has of family pictures. That might even just be a holding screen rather than an actual.
Who's that?
I don't know.
Sarah.
Cool. Let's wait another few seconds and then we're going to crack on. Someone's still just connecting. I was mentioning to the cohort how usually this time just beforehand, when we're all together, there's always like last minute checks and panics to like get all the tech working and making sure everything's set up so we can do these events. It's a different experience when we're doing it all remotely. It's just a matter of waiting and inviting people to speak. So it's good to see everyone coming in. Zana's just joined us. We have a few others with us. So welcome everyone. We'll get cracking in just a few seconds. Cool. All right. Well, let's start. Hi, folks, and welcome to like a huge milestone for both the cohort and for Digital Futures. This is our first software engineering cohort. It's the first cohort at Digital Futures, and they've completed 14 weeks of their intensive sort of immersive learning experience. And so they've put in like a ton of hard work over the 14 weeks. And so we're here gathered together to celebrate them and then to celebrate each other and just like think about and reflect on this journey that they've gone through. 14 weeks of such an intensive learning experience they probably haven't encountered before in the way that it's happened. First of all, I usually give like a big round of applause. We can't really do that remotely. So if you can do like emoji reactions or thumbs up or something, just to indicate like.
Come on, we can give a round of applause there. We can do some applause.
So folks, really well done.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, great work.
Yeah. Let's move on. We'll come back. We'll repeat right at the very end, all right, to wrap up. Just a quick fun photo to remind everyone of the first day. This was everyone on the first day, and you can see here some of the names of everyone who's on the cohort and a few others beside. So some of the staff members are here with us who don't have names, so all the names are in the cohort. So we have Anthony, we have Lantana, we have Jamie, we have Lewis that I just missed out. We have Josh, we have Sophie, we have Aiden, Safar, we have Marie, Paulina, Matt, Hannah, Susanna, and Petra at this point in time. I think, Petra, you were still on a plane or you just landed, if I remember correctly. So that's why you're not in this picture. And so this is the cohort on their first day, and here we are together again on their last day. So it's a nice reminder of how far we've come over this journey. As a quick reminder of what's happened, some quick stats that I pulled out. 40 members of the cohort. We spent 14 weeks at about 50 hours per week. So a lot of work done on the weekends as well as each day intensively. So we usually start around 9 a.m. and finish around 6, 7. Although this past week, I've noticed lots of pull requests and lots of code being done at 8, 9, 10 p.m. even. Lots of requests or even messages to me. So lots of work been done. Throughout the course, we've had 5 modules and 187 challenge submissions. This is the whole cohort repeatedly submitting assessments throughout the 14 weeks. And I've asked them to do a bunch of reflection and self-assessment. So I quickly add up all the numbers. We've had a total of 602 surveys filled out. We keep a record of every single one, and I might have even missed some. But that's a lot of reflection on things that have happened, on their own progress, on the course progress, and on each module. So lots of reflection. It's part of built in the way that the course runs, to think about not just what we're doing, but how we're doing things. As part of being the inaugural cohort as well, we're constantly looking to get feedback about how we can improve this experience week on and week out. So in terms of the 5 modules, I've asked some pairs of this cohort just to give a little taste about what were each of these 5 modules about. So we'll go through one by one, only a couple minutes each for each of these modules. And then we're going to talk about the team project that they just spent the past 3-4 weeks working on. And then we're going to wrap up. So we should be done in another half an hour, depending on how slowly they speak. So that's going to be the main variable here. Let's dive straight into it. Module 1, fundamentals. I'd love to get the first pair up to talk about this. So if you just want to unmute yourselves and we can start. Just let me know if you need me to go to the next slide, all right?
All right, great, thanks, Ed. Hi, my name is Petra, and Lantana and myself are going to talk about the first module of the course, which was MSE fundamentals. During this course, we have learned about things like how to set up a development environment, how to navigate within that, how to use our terminal as well. Secondly, we also learned about Git, that's the version control developer tool, which basically made very easy collaboration between teams and between among ourselves. And we also learned about JavaScript and its syntax, and we also learned how to solve very simple coding problems within this language. During this module, we also faced some challenges. So one of them was definitely how to set up our development environment. So before the course, I haven't actually used Terminal on a daily basis, so that was definitely something I had to practice and learn the commands to use it effectively. Secondly was the use of Git. So it was at the beginning a bit confusing when to push, how to push, when to commit changes. So that was definitely something which I was struggling with at the beginning. And pair programming, I believe I could say that most of us definitely didn't see what was the point of it, why we had to do it, what was the benefit of it. However, as we progressed through the course, we definitely felt and realized the clear benefits of it. And now I would like to hand it over to Lantana.
Hi, so I'm going to talk about the highlights of this module. So first, because it's at the beginning, I guess one highlight is that you've started on your learning journey, so right at the beginning. So we started off with learning JavaScript, which I'd say is a nice language, and we started completing some exorcism challenges. And exorcism is basically a website that has quite a few coding challenges, but very small ones that you complete and you test them just to improve on your logic with code. Then we also completed our Scrabble challenge, which was one of our first challenges. And so we actually had something that we'd completed and something that we could be proud of. So in the next slide is an example of one of the challenges that we did, which was a decryption challenge. And in this, essentially, you put in a ciphertext and a key shift, and out comes the plain text. And so it just deciphers things for you. And then in the slide after this is an example of our Scrabble challenge. And if you've played Scrabble, I guess you know that each letter has a value. So what this piece of code does is that you put a word in and it calculates your word score for you.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. So that was module 1, to begin everyone up to the same level, thinking about the fundamentals of programming. Now we have module 2, where we had a look at software design. Let's get the next pair up.
Hi, I'm Josh, and alongside Hannah, I'm going to talk about the software design module. So these are the objectives that we had for the module, but the two main objectives I'm going to talk about are TDD, or test-driven development. The idea of this is that we write tests for our code before we write the code. And the idea behind this is that it increases visibility and helps to catch errors and other edge cases we might not think about. And the second one I'd like to talk about is OOP, or object-oriented programming. And the idea here is that where code is repeated, we can make it into a thing called a class, where we don't have to just keep putting down the same code over and over again and making our code quite lengthy and not very nice to read.
Hi, I'm Hannah, and I'm going to talk a bit about some of the challenges that we faced in this module. So one of the main challenges that we faced was applying the process of TDD, like Josh mentioned. So just making sure that we wrote and ran our tests before writing any source code, which was a bit counterintuitive at first, but we realized the value in doing it because we could be more confident in fulfilling the requirements, and we weren't just sort of writing tests that we know are going to pass. Another challenge that we faced was having to read other people's code, which one of our pair programming tasks was actually to refactor and extend some code that another pair had written, which was a lot harder than we thought initially, but it really helped us to understand the importance of writing cohesive code, which is basically making sure that we separate different program behavior into different classes.
So here is an example in visual form of one of the challenges we did in the module, which was Gilded Rose. On the left, you can see that it's this is what we started with, which was untidy, very long, hard to read for anybody looking at it, let alone a programmer. And on the right, it's been split into classes that makes it nice and easy to edit and understand what's going on. Over to Hannah.
So as you can see here, the code for regular items is in its own class. So if you were to make changes to any of the other classes, it wouldn't affect what's going on in the regular class, which is what we want as programmers. So if we want to extend the code, it won't sort of have like a domino effect and potentially like break the whole code. So yeah, over to Matt and Sophie.
Cool. Matt and Sophie, let's hear from you about the next module that we had, which was thinking about how does software development work on the client side?
Hi guys, well, I'm Matt. This was a really good part of the course for us because it was the first time we got to see an end product or a user interface with our code. Up to this point, we'd only be getting results in the command line. So that was a big step for us on the course. We did that using React mostly. As you can see there, we used the TDD that Josh just talked about to build a simple front-end web app. We also did our first build day during this part of the course, which was when we started from scratch at 9 o'clock in the morning. And by 5:30, whenever it was, we had to have a working application of some description. Some of us fared better than others. We encountered a lot of problems, but that's the whole part of what we do on a course, to learn and improve. So when we go into the first job, we're at a reasonable standard. Another part of what we did during this time was consuming an API. So we did a news summary challenge, which took news stories from the Guardian's webpage, put them into our own app, and then used them and displayed them as we wanted to. If you could move to the next slide. As you said there, one of the big challenges at this point was the build day. It was the first one we'd done. It was interesting to see how everyone fared and how building from scratch without anyone there to necessarily hold your hand made us feel, and what we produced at the end was good to see. And yeah, understanding React is obviously too detailed to go into now, but there's lots of different relationships and how they all work together was something we learned during this period. Over to Sophie.
So the highlights of this period when we were learning to use React, the main one Matt kind of touched on was being able to see a page that we had coded away from the command line view, and being able to have visualization and see what a user would see and what they would interact with. Another one of the highlights again would be completing the build day and having that sense of achievement after finishing that, and then completing other projects. So we worked on the to-do list and the news summary challenge, as Matt mentioned. And another one of the highlights was linking to other web pages using an API. Here is just a demo of the to-do list we created using React. So it obviously allows you to type in and add tasks to the to-do list, and then you can check them accordingly. If that was a mistake, then you can uncheck them, and you can clear the list completely, and obviously then reuse it for whatever you may need to. And next is on to Anthony and Paulina to discuss databases.
Cool. Let's hear from Anthony and Paulina to think about the next part of our software development, which was thinking about how does work on the server side of things.
That's actually us, but
well, that's Aidan and Lewis.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aidan.
Right. So we'll be building off what Sophie and Matt just said. Next slide. So we were working on web development, which is similar to front end. It's just building on it. So we take what they've done on front end, what the user sees, and add a server to it. So this is what does all the logic and carries out all the operations, so we can make changes to the front end easier. For our goals here, we wanted to end up with a rock, paper, scissors game, something very simple that you could just go on, play it, have the logic all be done, play against a computer or play against other players, and yeah, just have it work. I will move on to Lewis to explain actually how it works.
Okay, here's just an example of some of the behind the scenes logic to the game. So this is just a class that is calculating the winner between whatever the user inputs and the computer. Yeah, so next slide, please. So the main new sort of concept that we had to grasp in this module was the idea of a controller, which is basically the middleman between what the user's putting in and what's happening behind the scenes logic. So for example, this controller here is taking the choice of the user, whether they want to play in difficult mode or easy mode. It's taking what they say, it's doing something with the backend logic, and then it's returning a page to the user depending on what their input was.
I'm just going to interject there a little bit. I just wanted to add that me personally, I had a lot of issues trying to get this to work. Like linking the server to the front end was really tricky, even though if you look at it now, it looks very simple. And if I look at it, I completely understand what's going on. But that's, I feel, something that is present throughout the whole course and what we've been doing. Once you learn it, you get used to it. And yeah, it's kind of how it's been going. Also, I think we have a video for this, which
I think let me go find it. I think that you're absolutely right.
So yeah, here we're just selecting easy mode. It's going through, playing the game. It's saying tallying it up. It's having the computer choose a random choice, rock, papers, or scissors. And yeah, it's just coming up with the ending. And then we have a harder version with just different rules, but it's pretty much the same thing. This was actually so satisfying to see though. After all the work we've been doing, this is probably my favorite part. And I played like maybe 100 games of this, even though it's literally just pressing a button. But it's just, yeah, it's so nice to see work. But, yeah, so I'll pass it over to databases now.
Cool. Let's move on to thinking about the next part of our server-side development, thinking about how do we persist data.
Cool. Hi, I'm Anthony here, and Paulina and I are going to talk to you about our module like databases. So the problem with any previous work we've done, like including the to-do list, is that once you've closed the web page, that to-do list was gone and nothing was saved. So this is where the database comes in, which is essentially a collection of tables that can continuously hold your data for you. So our new aim in this module was to build a database and an application that can essentially talk to each other by sending data to each other. Other than having never used a database before, I think the main challenges occurred while trying to use something called an ORM, which object relational mapping. So it's effectively something that translates our JavaScript code into code that the database can read. The hardest bit about it, there's a small snippet at the bottom there, and while it might look small, as Aidan said before, it's quite hard to understand and implement at first. And especially also there's a lot of background elements to that are associated with just those like 7 lines that we have there. So now I'll pass you to Paulina, who'll talk about some highlights of this section.
Hi, I'm Paulina. So the main highlight for this module for us was completing the Twitter challenge, which was a very simple clone of Twitter, where you were able to log in and, well, sign up and then log in, and you're taken to a wall where you can post stuff on your wall. So this was a very big step for us because it was the first full stack application which we made, which actually persisted data and also used user management. We also worked on a pair project, which was the bookmark manager application, which was also very good for us. And it basically gave us the foundations, which we were then able to use and complete the Twitter challenge. And here you can see some examples from our database that were in the bookmark manager application. And now we're going to show you a demo of the Twitter challenge that I made. So here you can see that you can sign up on the page using a email, username, name and password. And then it takes you to a wall where you're able to post peeps, I think that's what we called it. And yeah, then it shows you the time and the username of who posted it. Yeah, and then you're able to delete the post as well. And then sign out and you can sign back in. And now to Safa and Jamie about team engineering.
Hello, how's everyone doing? Slap me the thumbs up if you're good. Yeah? Okay, cool. Obviously, my name is Jamie. Next slide, please. So team engineering is probably, so all the other modules were to get us to the start line. And team engineering is the fundamentals for what we will need in a company to survive, basically. And so here are the objectives that are outlined. So this module was 4 weeks, but the first week we were doing something else that Safar will cover later. But in the next 3 weeks, we basically were split up into teams of 3 teams, 1 team of 6, 2 teams of 4, and we had different parts of the project that we collabed together. You will see this later though, because we're going to demo it later. But yeah, I guess over to Safar.
Hi, my name's Safar, and in the first week of team engineering, we learned Java, which is kind of similar to the beginning of the course. So we were setting up our development environment and looking at things like Gradle, which is a build tool that supports compiling code and testing it. And after we learned Java and looked at our development environment, we applied our knowledge through an airport challenge, which is what you're looking at right now. We actually previously completed the airport challenge in JavaScript. So we were looking at those same requirements, converting them into tests and then working code. And then after this first week, we spent the next 3 weeks on our cohort project. And the main aim of that project was just to create a system to manage candidates in 3 different ways, such as searching for candidates, seeing them in a pipeline view, and also having profiles for these individual candidates. But that will be looked at in more detail later on. The main takeaway from this module was learning how to work together as a team, but also getting a glimpse of what it would look like in a working environment. And I think I'll pass back to Jamie for the challenges of this module.
Yeah, I guess the challenge we faced was internal communication between people, because obviously when you're put into a brand new team, you don't understand necessarily what the work styles are. And also because we're all working on one common code base, there's issues with communications between teams because they may make edits that affect your work. So this developed over time and improved. There's a few more, but other people will cover it later on.
Cool. Thanks, folks. So what we've seen so far, if we just take a breather, is the sort of overview of the 5 different modules that the cohort has gone through so far. This last part, I wanted to get each of the individual teams to present some of the work they've done for this team project. So we're going to have 3 more sets of slides, this time focused for each team about what work they've done, how do they find this experience of sort of simulating exactly what they'd be likely be doing when they get deployed into their future teams. This was essentially the original brief that I gave the cohort. I'm an admissions manager for a fantastic professional services company, but the problem is we have so many applicants, and I need a way to track candidates who are applying by what stage and the process they're in. I want to be able to search for candidates in the system by name, and I want to be able to look at the details of a candidate. So quite high level requirements, and each of these three requirements I gave to a team. As part of this, as I think Jamie and Seth already mentioned, there was a bunch of new tools that we had to pick up and learn. On the left-hand side here, you see some of the technical tools. On the right-hand side, you see some of the work allocation tools to manage the project. So lots of new things at the same time with sort of teamwork. So the experience at the beginning is a lot of learning, and then as the weeks go by, the development velocity sort of picked up as they got more familiar with the code base and the development process. So lots of new things for this team project. I thought I'd start off by inviting a couple before we get into the actual teamwork. So a couple of the cohort. Susanna and Marie, to talk about how are we going to structure this project and how do we get code into production. So if we think about the original requirements, how are we going to manage this, and how are we going to keep writing code so we can actually see the results of it. So let's have a chat with Susanna and Marie.
Hi, my name is Susanna, and me and Marie will talk about how we approached the Atlas project, which was the final project completed as part of our team engineering module. I'm going to be talking about the architecture, so the basic structure of the project. It was composed of the front end, which is where the user interaction happens, and the backend, which is where the API and the database are. And the information is passed between the front end and the backend via HTTP requests and responses. So in this diagram, you can see on the left, there's a representation of a set of pages which a user would be interacting with from the front end. This was done using something called React, which is a JavaScript framework. You can see example pages with the URL pipeline, search, and profile corresponding to the complete list of users, a search bar function, and individual profiles. And depending on what resource needs to be returned, whether it's all the users, the specific users matching search queries, or individual profiles, the React application will send an appropriate HTTP request to the relevant controller on the backend, which you can see is represented by the middle column there. This was done using something called Spring Boot, which is a Java framework. This controller will then decide what query is made to the database to retrieve the required data. And that information is then passed back from the database to the controller, and a response containing it is displayed on the front end. Marie will now talk about the production process of the entire project.
Thanks, Susanna. As she said, my name is Marie, and our project pipeline was basically our way of implementing the project architecture that Susanna just described. It basically allows us to upload code to a shared repository on GitHub, or basically just a large folder with loads of files. And we were able to do this frequently, and we were able to minimize the amount of errors that were introduced into the main repository via a continuous integration server. So on the next slide, you'll be able to see our Java-based continuous integration server automatically detect changes made to the repository and perform a series of steps to make sure that all the tests are passing and there's no errors seen from any dependencies installed in our branches. And this will all be done and would safeguard against any pull requests that are made. So if anything's failing, the pull requests will not be able to be accepted into the main repository where our main files are stored. So once those tests are passing, our code can be deployed to the main repository which can then be pushed to our production environment. And this just contains, again, all the files we need for our application to work. So as you can see here in our front end app, we use the AWS Amplify service. And for our backend repository for our API, we use the Heroku platform. And that's about it for the profile thing there. Yeah. So I think it's now over to team profile.
Cool. Hi, Anthony again. So we're team profile made up of Petra, Marie, Aidan, and myself. And our goal was to produce a simple profile page that displayed a particular user's information when you navigated to their page. On the high level, when you want to see a user's page, our front-end app will ask the database for their information. The database will return just that one person's information, and our React application will make it look nice. We drew up a little template on the right at the beginning of the course, thinking this is what we want it to look like. On the next slide, I have a little demo I made earlier of our profile application. And
hi, so I'm going to start by navigating to one specific profile, for example, Mo. Within the profile page, we receive all the information from the database about this specific profile and display it appropriately according to the template we had initially drawn up. So we have things such as bio information at the top, any badges they've earned, any feedback anyone has given them, as well as their interests on the right-hand side. The way this works is that we ask the database for Mo's information, and it sends back this text file here, which includes things like the likes being sleeping. Our front-end application then reads that file and displays it appropriately, where we have all our likes grouped up on the right, as well as the dislikes. Not only that, we can add and delete functionality from the table. For example, we can add Java Pro onto the badges, or we could delete line of duty from the likes, which not only deletes it from our front-end application page, but also tells the database to add or remove specific functionality from the database itself.
Awesome. I hope you could all hear that okay. But now I'll pass it over to Marie, who's going to talk about our work done throughout this.
Thanks, Anthony. Marie again. So I'm just going to discuss how we achieved the profile page that Anthony just demoed. We basically just created a number of tickets in our Jira Kanban board and separated them into front-end tasks and back-end tasks. So for our front-end tasks, for example, we have this ticket here that was just called styling, and we just wanted our page to look alive, and the theme was just color. And in these particular series of code blocks, we just used a React library called styled components to change the shape and add some shadow to the profile photo. We also, in our backend code, had some work done there as well. Thanks. And we added a number of user interactions, such as like updating and deleting certain elements on the page. So in this code block in particular, we achieved the action of deleting a feedback quote from the page and from the database. So yeah, this is how we did it. And that's all from me. And I think it's over to Aidan now with the lessons we learned in our group.
Definitely my favorite slide right here. I know I'm biased, but it's definitely there. Glad to see most of it made it in. I see some of it was definitely taken out, but that's fine. So here's all the things that we've learned, and yeah, there's a lot of it. I wasn't gonna stand here for 30 minutes and go through it all, so I decided to put some things up front. And I know it's a bit facetious maybe, especially if you look at the main one right there, the value of friendship, but that one is actually very important. The teamwork that we needed to actually go through this was absolutely vital. I know I couldn't have no chance done this by myself, but by working with each other, playing off each other's expertise, like teaching each other how to work, we actually managed to get it all done in pretty timely fashion, and I'm very happy with the end result. But yeah, that one's definitely important. If you look at other ones, development life cycle, learning how that works, sprint planning, all these like very useful tools. Some that are definitely up there, and I feel like Ed kept in just because he appreciates the sentiment, like shaving my head to gain man-like patience. Also there for you, Sean. I get it. I've done it now and I'm never going back. But yeah, it's all so many useful things learned in the last 3 weeks. It's actually been probably about equivalent to learning for the rest of the course. It's been a great time. But to less good times, I'll pass over to Petra, which is the challenges we faced.
Yeah, thanks, Aidan. So some of the challenges we have faced as a team was one of them definitely learning Spring Boot and learning about Flyway relatively quickly, so we would be able to make a start on the project as soon as possible. We done backend projects beforehand. We worked with databases beforehand. However, the novelty of the project was definitely that we had to learn about a completely new, different framework and ORM as well. Secondly, external communication with the other teams could have been better at some point. The internal communication within the team was very great, very good. However, there was a time when we pushed our new features up to a branch, and that caused some trouble for the other team. So we learned from that, and from that moment onwards, we definitely improved on that as well. And thirdly, I would just say Git rebasing as a process and the merging conflicts deriving from that wasn't a pleasant experience sometimes, but we have learned a lot from it. And yeah, I think that would be it from Team Profile.
Awesome. Nice job, folks. Next up, we have Team Search, otherwise known as Team Quest.
Yeah, so we are Team Quest, myself, Jamie, Susanna, and Sophie. And we were tasked with making a search bar as part of the application. So these are our initial user stories, which is what the tasks are set out for us to achieve. And as you can see, the idea is we have a search bar to search for the applicants that are applying to this brilliant company Ed was talking about earlier. And we then, we want to search character by character or dynamically typing, we would say. And as you put in each letter, the search results should update, a bit like when you use Google, for example. Finally, we had to handle filtering of the search bar. And that meant, for instance, when numbers were put in, we would return an error for the user to see. Next slide, please. There should be a slide before that. Yeah, so how we went about this process, we started off with a basic post request to the backend. And by that, I mean, we made a request to the database to retrieve an applicant if they were available. And we did this with a simple search bar and a button. So you'd type in a person's name, hit the button. If they were there, it would return their profile. We then moved on, once we got that sorted, to typing dynamically that I previously talked about, updating a top 10 of search results by each letter that was put in. And beyond that, we went on to then check for edge cases that I've talked about previously, putting in the wrong characters or an applicant not existing, where we'd send back a message for the user to see in these scenarios. And finally, we added some styling to make our page look lovely for the user. Moving on to Jamie.
I'm back. So here's just a quick demo of the page. So as you see, when you start typing, names will start appearing. As you type more, it will become more refined and less names will start appearing. When you click on it, it will take you to the profile page, which we had nothing to do with. When you go back, you'll see a different shade of coloring. The user errors will appear like this if the user does not exist. If you just type in special characters, this is the error that appears. We also had another area that basically when you went backspace all the way after you started typing, it crashed the app, so we had to fix that. As you can see as well, the names aren't displaying center. They were locally, but I guess something went wrong when we pushed it remotely. But yeah, that's basically it. Pass it on to Sophie.
So here are some code snippets from our front end. On the left, a test is shown. That's just one of the many that we made. And this is to test the post request for the search bar. The arrows on pointing to a JSON folder. This is what we use to stub our tests. So instead of sending requests to the database every time we made the tests, we put the data into this JSON folder and the request was sent there instead. The next slide, yeah. And then this is just a code snippet from the back end. So on the left, that is our controller, and on the right is a test, again, just that illustrates if you type in a name that doesn't exist, the type of error that would be shown. And then moving on to things that we've learned. Some of these things have already kind of been touched on, but we obviously had to get to grips with different concepts such as string boot, Java, and style component that we use for our styling. We had to go through research, and this helped us to kind of go through the planning process and model and diagram our ideas for the project appropriately. We've learned how to link an interface such as React with an API. And carrying out the project has helped us to really understand the workflow of companies and continuous integration. We've also been able to learn more about using Git and managing the changes that we make to our files, and then kind of touching on team chemistry again and learning how our teammates work and adapting to that accordingly as well.
Some of the challenges that we've faced included rebasing, which is a feature of the version control system Git, which ensures that any work contributed by a team has integrated and is building on top of changes made previously by other teams. This took some getting used to. And another thing that we have encountered as a problem was sometimes a lack of communication between teams, which is necessary to coordinate the pace at which different features are developed and deployed, and how components are added. And sometimes this communication was a little less than perfect, and this took up a lot of time to then sync up the work that we were each doing. Something that we encountered as a team as well that hindered our progress a bit was getting the right Java version locally, because the syntax and functionality is different between different versions of the Java programming language. We were using Java 8, whereas the project relied on Java version 11, and this caused a mismatch between how the app worked for us locally and remotely. And the code base, which is the complete body of source code for a given software program, was initially a little bit intimidating, both because we were still kind of getting familiar with Java as a language, and also the specific framework that we needed for this project, and also the extent of the code base and how many components it had was a little bit intimidating at first. But I would say that in the end, our team is very pleased with where we've got to.
Really great stuff, folks. Last up, we have Team Pipeline to wrap up our cohorts of work on this project, for which we have Antana Safar, Hannah, Matt Lewis, and Paulina. Take it away, folks.
Hi, me again. I'll try and not repeat what's been said twice, because the themes are pretty similar between the three teams. This is how we set up backend and front end, as already been discussed. We tried to make sure that we had team retrospectives every day, so everyone was on the same page in terms of what needs to be done, what's going well, what's maybe not going well. And also at the end of each 3-day sprint, because we had 3 weeks, 3 working weeks, 15 days, obviously, we had a good get together and made sure that we were on track, and yeah, just keeping the wheels in motion is a big part of working in teams. And if we hadn't have done that, I'm not sure we'd have got anywhere near a project out. So that was very important.
So the task for our team was to display the applicant's pipeline in the form of a table, to show each applicant in the corresponding column according to their status. And we're also tasked with, when you click on the user, it has to go to their profile. So to create the table, we used a library called React Table. But then just this week, we were actually given the additional requirement to be able to drag and drop users between columns. So like when their status changed, you can drag it to the correct column. But then we realized that we can actually do this with the React Table library. So we switched to using a different library called React DND, DND being drag and drop. So after we implemented that, it looked like this. And Paulina will talk you through the demo.
Hi, so yeah, this is the demonstration of what the application looks like at the moment, and this is our candidate pipeline. The idea was that you can pick up an item, which is like a person, and you're able to drag it across the different columns and drop them into the columns so that the status would also change in the backend. So it would be like data persistence. But since we only had like 2 or 3 days to implement the drag and drop, it hasn't really worked out completely how we wanted. So at the moment, you're able to pick things up and drag them, but you're not able to drop them into the different columns.
There were a lot of things that were learned over the duration of this project. Some of these things included the different React libraries, such as React Components, React Table, and React D&D, but also Flyway, which was used for the databases, and Spring Boot for the API, and also how the MVC model works in regards to our side of the project. And I'll pass it on to Lewis.
Yeah, so we learned sort of how to efficiently work as a team and how to organize our work so that we were working in something that's known as a sprint, where you set a few days to accomplish a small amount of work, and you do multiple sprints over the 3 weeks, to deliver like small amounts of work incrementally. And this was a useful experience to have to take into future employment. Also, rebasing, which pretty much everyone else has mentioned. That was one of our main problems, and learning how that works was one of the main takeaways from this project, I'd say, at least. And how often we need to commit our work and how to communicate with the other teams, which has also already been mentioned, and how to configure different environments, such as development environments, test environments, and production environments, and like when you need to use them, and how they work and how to use them. Yeah, that's all.
So some of the challenges we faced include rebasing, which I think everyone has mentioned, squashing commits, and I say one of the biggest challenges was having to start the front end from scratch a few days before our deadline. So as Paulina mentioned, our table was essentially organized into rows. And so if you wanted to drag any of the people across to their different statuses, you couldn't do that because you could only drag them up and down the table, meaning that their status wouldn't change. So after finding some resources to implement a drag and drop, we realized that it was much more difficult than we first assumed. But then we did manage to get most of it done in the few days that we did have, so that's quite good. And I'd say another big challenge we faced was building the project in a language that we hadn't had much time and much experience with, so we had to learn as we went, and that included looking at documentation and just having to basically literally just learn as you go, and the pace was quite fast, but we still got there in the end.
Nice. Well, that wraps us up, folks. Sort of a brief history in the life of this cohort, I think maybe we can wrap up again by giving like another set of applause, a clap to appreciation for the cohort who've spent 14 weeks of their lives doing a lot of intensive hard work. So let's do one more round of applause. I'm going to try and do mine. Yeah, exactly. So good job, folks. I'm really proud of you. Awesome. So that's it. Thanks for participating. Thanks for joining. If anyone wants to stay and chat or share things, please feel free to. Otherwise, have a lovely evening. And thanks for participating.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Just a quick note from me. Really appreciate you guys taking so much time. Yeah, you guys have clearly done a huge amount of work over the last 12, 14 weeks. I mean, amazing. I mean, you kind of lost me on part 2, to be honest, from a technical perspective. But all credit to you. You've clearly come an awfully long way. So yeah, congratulations. I hope you have a lovely weekend. I know we've all got a bit of work to do over the next week or two, to get over that final hurdle. So yeah, again, get some rest time in, but let's get prepared over the next couple of weeks to get over this final hump and get you guys out there working and doing it for real. So thank you very much for today. Really appreciate it, and have a good weekend.
Yeah, and I'd echo that. I mean, it was really impressive to, first of all, see all this hard work come together. I thought each of you gave a really good account of the work that you presented. You came across very concisely, very knowledgeably, and most importantly, very credible, which is the most important thing. Being able to explain technical concepts to non-technical people like myself, Sean, and others that have joined. So I think you've done an amazing job. And from my perspective, having met you at the start of this journey, and seeing the confidence that you now have is great. And I especially loved the comment that Aidan made around the importance of working together and the support that you've provided one another throughout this course. And the reality is that once you start working for our clients, that's what it's all about. That really resonated with me. But it's great to see. I'm deeply proud of all of you, actually. I just want to reiterate what Ed said at the start of this call. And that is that, you are the first cohort going through Digital Futures. You took a risk on us. We are very grateful for that. And I hope that you feel that you have got value out of the education process so far under Ed. What I can say is we're working incredibly hard behind the scenes in order to set you up for future success. But it's a great job, and I think it's a fantastic milestone. I'm really really delighted to see it all come together. And also, Ed, I'd just like to personally thank you because I think that you've done a tremendous job in difficult circumstances. Firstly, everybody's been remote. Clearly that's come out in some of the feedback and the challenges that's provided. You're also new to Digital Futures, and I think you've done a great job. So well done, everybody. It's great to see, look forward to connecting with you all next week, and wish you a very good weekend.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sean. It's been really great to hear you share that with the cohort. I'm sure they're all pleased.
Great stuff. Well done.
Nice work, guys. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Bye, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. I'm going to be the last person.
Thanks for all the training, Ed.
You got it, Lewis.
Good weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Have a good weekend.
Likewise.